17 years of loyalty, wiped out in a single day. And I swear, my revenge will burn this factory to the ground. I still remember the hum of the machines, that steady mechanical heartbeat of millstone manufacturing. Columbus, Ohio, my home for nearly 2 decades, and the place I knew better than my own reflection. I'm Derek Collins, the guy who built the brains behind every automated system this factory ran on. The man who wrote the lines of code no one else could read, who calibrated machines until they ran like clockwork, shaving fractions of a second here, squeezing every drop of efficiency there. For 17 years, I was the unseen force keeping this place alive. Late nights weren't rare. When the assembly line froze unexpectedly, it was me in the cold glow of computer screens, fingers flying across the keyboard, chasing down bugs no one else could find. I still remember that one winter evening when a conveyor belt stalled right before a critical shipment. While others panicked, I stayed calm, patched the firmware remotely, rerouted systems, and had production humming again before dawn. That was my pride. Millstone had the lowest defect rate in the industry, and I'd built the systems that made it happen. But it wasn't just the work. It was everything here. The smell of hot metal and coolant. The rhythmic clank of machines. The small coffee mug my daughter made me back in 3rd grade, still sitting on my cluttered desk next to the spare reading glasses I barely used. Those little reminders anchored me, my daughter, now hundreds of miles away at college, my wife long gone after a messy divorce. This factory was my family now. Leon, the floor supervisor, was the closest thing I had to a brother. We fished together on weekends, shared quiet moments of frustration, and kept each other grounded when the weight of the factory crushed down. He knew this place like I did, and unlike most, he understood the complexity beneath the factory's steady hum. That morning, everything was different. Maya Crawford, the new plant manager, stood before the assembly line, her eyes darting around the room like she was about to drop a bomb. Her MBA from some fancy university gave her confidence, but none of it translated to respect for the machines or the people who kept them running. "We're modernizing operations," she announced, voice cold and precise. "Some positions are becoming redundant." Her words hit me like a punch. Me. After 17 years of blood, sweat, and sleepless nights. No warning. No conversation. Just discarded like an old tool no one wanted anymore. I watched as she slid a folder across my desk, a severance package, 2 months' pay and whatever vacation time I hadn't used. "Generous," she said. "But generosity isn't measured in dollars when you're stripped of everything you built." I packed my things slowly. Each item in my drawer carried a memory. The mug with chipped paint, the notebook filled with handwritten calibration codes, a small photo of my daughter at her last graduation. The hum of the factory behind me sounded foreign now, like a song I once loved but could no longer hear. Leon caught my eye as I passed him. His expression was a mix of sympathy and helplessness. "Keep your head down," he whispered. "But how do you keep your head down when everything you worked for is ripped away?" The door clicked shut behind me, and a hollow silence settled inside. Years of loyalty, erased in a day. But beneath the quiet, a slow-burning fire ignited deep in my chest. They may have taken the factory from me, but they hadn't taken my knowledge, my skill, or my resolve. And they were about to learn exactly what 17 years of expertise was really worth. The cold reality hit me like a brick wall the moment I was locked out of the system I had spent nearly 2 decades mastering. Overnight, the complex network of controls, calibrations, and firmware that I had painstakingly built was cut off from my reach. No warning, no explanation. Just a few lines of code revoking my access, effectively erasing me from the heartbeat of millstone manufacturing. Maya Crawford had done her job well, or rather, she had done what she was told. Young, polished, and ambitious, she carried the confidence of a fresh MBA graduate from an Ivy League school, her every move calculated to project power and efficiency. But beneath that poised exterior lay something far more dangerous, a ruthless determination to climb the corporate ladder at any cost. Her first move was swift and merciless. Within hours of her arrival, she severed all ties between me and the factory's automation systems. It wasn't just a bureaucratic change, it was a deliberate attempt to erase my very existence from the operation. My credentials expired. My privileges revoked. The control panels I once commanded as effortlessly as breathing were now out of my reach. And the company? They nodded and smiled as if this were progress. The irony was brutal. I was the man who had kept these machines alive through every crisis, who had developed custom firmware nobody else could understand, who had single-handedly pushed production to levels that competitors envied. Yet here I was, pushed out like yesterday's trash to make way for some modernization plan cooked up by executives who hadn't spent a minute on the factory floor. And speaking of plans, Maya had inked a deal with Novatech Solutions, a flashy, new-age tech company with little grasp of our legacy systems but a whole lot of promises. What they lacked in expertise, they made up for in ambition and pockets full of cash, or so I suspected. The whispers in the halls, hushed and hurried, spoke of kickbacks and sweetheart deals. The kind of corruption that's invisible until it's too late. Meanwhile, Maya spun a shiny tale to the rest of the staff. Efficiency, optimization, and cost savings were her mantras. She painted herself as the savior who would lead Millstone into a new era. But beneath the polished presentations and upbeat emails, her true game was far darker. She saw me as a sacrificial pawn in her bid to impress corporate executives hungry for profits. I remember the confrontation like it was yesterday. The meeting was tense, suffocating. I sat there, arms crossed, while Maya casually dismissed my warnings about the fragility of our proprietary systems. Legacy systems are liabilities, she sneered, her eyes cold. We need to move forward. I tried to explain. The software I had written was not just code, it was the lifeblood of the factory. Without the exact calibrations and protocols, machines would fail, quality would plummet, and production would grind to a halt. But Maya waved it off like I was an outdated machine myself, a relic that had outlived his usefulness. The room was thick with silence, broken only by the mechanical whir of the factory floor in the background, a haunting reminder of what was at stake. I felt the weight of betrayal settle deep in my chest. Years of dedication reduced to nothing more than a footnote in her grand modernization script. Yet, despite the sting, I refused to let anger cloud my judgment. I sat still, collected, plotting. If Maya wanted a war, I was ready to fight, but on my terms. My knowledge was my weapon, and I would wield it with precision and patience. One cold evening, long after the factory's lights had dimmed, I received an email that sent a chill down my spine. The sender was anonymous, the subject line blank. Inside was a short video clip, grainy, shaky footage of a group of Novatech technicians furtively tampering with control panels deep within the factory's bowels. Their movements were hurried, furtive, almost clandestine. The video didn't show much, but the message was clear. They were meddling with systems they didn't fully understand, and the consequences could be catastrophic. Alongside the clip was a cryptic note: the real war has only begun. Be careful what you uncover. That night, as I replayed the footage over and over, a realization crystallized. Maya's decision to oust me was never about progress or efficiency. It was about greed, corruption, and a ruthless gamble with the future of Millstone. She was willing to sacrifice everything I'd built to line her pockets and climb the corporate ladder. The factory wasn't just being modernized, it was being sold out. I sat back in my chair, the room heavy with shadows and unresolved anger. But beneath it all, a fire began to burn, steady and fierce. They thought they could erase me, but the knowledge, the experience, the loyalty I had poured into Millstone ran deeper than any software update or corporate memo. And I was just getting started. The factory floor used to pulse with a steady, confident rhythm, machines humming in perfect sync, workers moving with practiced precision. But after Novatech Solutions took over, everything began to unravel like a badly knit sweater. I kept my distance, watching from the sidelines as the place I'd spent nearly 2 decades building slowly fell apart. Novatech's team, bright-eyed but inexperienced with our legacy systems, stumbled over each step. They had the latest buzzwords and glossy presentations, but they didn't understand the fragile balance that held Millstone together. The southern conveyor belt, the very one I had flagged as a vulnerability months before I was ousted, became the factory's Achilles heel. It stopped unpredictably, grinding production to a halt again and again. Each unplanned pause rippled through the lines, snarling shipments and triggering alarms. More alarming were the CNC machines in Bay 3. Once the pride of Millstone's precision manufacturing, they began producing parts riddled with flaws. The defect rate soared, 30% above our historic lows. Customers started complaining, quality control was overwhelmed, and the once solid reputation of Millstone wobbled on the edge of collapse. On the floor, tension thickened like fog. The faces I once knew as confident and assured now looked strained and wary. Leon, my closest ally, watched helplessly as chaos spread. The weight of responsibility crushed him, the hope that had kept us afloat was slipping away like water through clenched fists. Behind closed doors, leadership was a different story. Maya refused to acknowledge the depth of the crisis. Her polished smile never wavered in public, but I knew the cracks were showing in private. She buried bad news, spun half-truths, and insisted everything was under control, all while quietly tightening the screws on employees who dared to question her decisions. Rumors circulated of layoffs, budget cuts, and a growing atmosphere of fear. The workers, once proud of their craft, now whispered in hushed tones, eyes darting to supervisors with growing distrust. Morale plunged, and with it, productivity. Watching it all unfold from the outside was a mix of heartbreak and fury. Every malfunction, every failed inspection, felt like a personal wound. This was more than a factory, it was a legacy. And Maya, with her reckless gamble, was burning it to the ground. I could almost hear the factory's pulse faltering beneath the surface, a dying heartbeat masked by forced calm. The very systems I had designed to safeguard against such collapse were being twisted, misused, and neglected. Still, I held back. Patience was my weapon now. I knew that desperate decisions would be made, and sooner or later, the people in charge would realize that no amount of flashy tech or corporate jargon could replace real expertise. That breaking point came sooner than expected. The mounting failures and rising costs forced Maya's hand. Faced with the undeniable fallout, she reached out to me. Her call was reluctant, her voice a shade less confident than before. "Derek, we need your help," she said, almost apologetically. But I heard the unspoken threat beneath her words, "Fix this, or watch everything burn." The game had changed. I was no longer just a discarded employee, I was the last line of defense. And this time, I would make sure they paid for every moment they doubted me. I received the call one chilly afternoon, just as the sun was dipping below the Columbus skyline. Maya's voice was a mixture of desperation and calculated professionalism. "Derek, we need you back," she said. "There's been a critical failure on the southern conveyor line, and production is hemorrhaging. We're prepared to offer a consulting contract, at a premium rate." I listened, weighing every word carefully. After 17 years of loyalty, the factory I built was crumbling, and now the very woman who pushed me out was begging for my expertise. But I was no fool. This wasn't charity, and I wasn't walking back through those doors as an employee, not again. I responded coolly, "I'm willing to consult, but I set the terms. Hourly rate, minimum hours, payment upfront, and full control over the scope of work. This is a business agreement, not a job offer." There was a pause before she agreed, the first crack in her polished veneer. I packed my laptop with backups I had secretly saved before my termination, files that Novatech and Maya had no idea existed outside the company network. Those calibration parameters, custom firmware routines, and troubleshooting manuals were my lifeline now. Walking back onto the factory floor felt surreal. The place smelled the same, oil and metal, but the energy was different, taut and strained. Operators looked up with cautious curiosity as I connected my laptop to the control panel of the beleaguered southern conveyor. Within minutes, I uncovered the truth: Novatech hadn't just failed to maintain the system. They had deliberately sabotaged it. They'd embedded dead code, subtle software blocks that effectively nailed the system shut, ensuring no one could easily repair it without proprietary knowledge. A calculated move to make the factory dependent on them, to lock out any legacy expertise. My fingers flew over the keyboard, bypassing the malicious code, restoring firmware integrity. As I worked, I stumbled upon encrypted files buried deep within the server, documents detailing Maya's arrangement with Novatech. It was worse than I'd feared. She had accepted kickbacks, quietly pocketing hundreds of thousands in exchange for pushing their agenda, knowingly sacrificing product quality for short-term gains. The weight of betrayal pressed down on me, but I swallowed my fury. This was no time for rash moves. I was patient. I had to be. Every step, every repair, every bit of evidence collected was part of a larger plan. Late one evening, as I sifted through system logs, an encrypted message appeared in my inbox. The sender was unfamiliar: Emily Harper. A name I recognized immediately, a Novatech engineer, but also a former Millstone employee who had left under murky circumstances. Her message was terse but clear: she disagreed with Novatech's reckless approach, had watched the destruction unfold with growing horror, and wanted to help. Meeting with Emily was tense at first. We were on opposite sides. After all, she, a representative of the very company that had sabotaged my life's work. But her knowledge was invaluable. She had insights into Novatech's inner workings, access to systems and information that I could only dream of. Our alliance was uneasy, a dance of suspicion and necessity. She feared repercussions, constantly looking over her shoulder, while I guarded my plans like a general before battle. But together, we began to unravel the web of corruption and incompetence strangling Millstone. With Emily's help, I gained access to restricted data streams, intercepted communications, and internal reports that painted an even darker picture of Novatech's infiltration and Maya's complicity. This partnership transformed my mission from mere repair to strategic warfare. No longer was I fighting alone. I had a foothold inside the enemy camp, an unexpected ally who could tip the scales. As I returned to my workbench each day, patching systems and restoring order, I also built the foundation for a reckoning, one that would expose the truth, reclaim what was stolen, and ensure that no one would ever undermine Millstone's legacy again. The stage was set. The players in position. And I was ready to take back what was mine, with a vengeance as precise and unstoppable as the machines I once commanded. The slow but relentless tide of change began the moment I conceived Milltrack, a comprehensive management system unlike anything Millstone had ever seen. It wasn't just a patch or an upgrade, it was a revolution born from years of intimate knowledge and tempered by betrayal. I designed Milltrack to do exactly what no one else could: integrate every piece of equipment, track every production metric in real time, forecast maintenance needs before machines failed, and provide transparent, unfiltered reports directly to the executives. But Milltrack was more than just software. It was my insurance policy, my ultimate weapon in a war they thought they'd already won. I built it so only I could operate and maintain it. Complex encryption, proprietary algorithms, and an interface that required an intimate understanding of Millstone's unique infrastructure, all tightly controlled by my expertise. The company would become utterly dependent on me. I was no longer disposable, I was indispensable. Each phase of Milltrack's deployment was meticulously planned. I collaborated closely with Leon, whose knowledge of day-to-day operations was invaluable. Together, with Emily's insider intelligence, we mapped the damage Novatech had inflicted, every corrupted calibration, every misapplied software patch, every financial irregularity tied back to their sabotage and Maya's greed. We compiled mountains of evidence, system logs showing intentional code sabotage, emails confirming illicit payments, and reports revealing the devastating drop in product quality. Leon became my right hand, managing the practical implementation on the factory floor and liaising with skeptical technicians. His loyalty was unwavering, and his frustration with management's failures fueled our determination. Emily operated from within Novatech's shadowy corridors, slipping us information at critical junctures, always careful, always watchful. As Miltrack began to restore order, the cracks in Maya's armor widened. She lashed out with every meeting, attempting to discredit us, deny the evidence, and rally her supporters. But the truth was an unyielding tide, and no amount of spin or deception could stop it. The pinnacle came in a high-stakes boardroom confrontation. The executives, once distant and disengaged, sat with furrowed brows as I presented detailed charts and data streams on the conference room's massive projector. Red lines showed defect rates spiraling upward, warranty claims exploded. Next to them, Miltrack's real-time dashboards projected soaring efficiency gains where it was operational, and predictive maintenance alerts that promised to save millions in downtime. "You're facing a choice," I said, voice steady but firm. "Adopt Miltrack fully, invest in its ongoing development and my continued consulting, or continue down this path and watch this factory bleed out quality, contracts, and reputation." Maya's face twisted in frustration, her usual poise cracking. She protested, tried to undermine the data, but the room was no longer hers to command. The board members exchanged glances, the weight of lost revenue and client defections settling over them like a cold shadow. Throughout, I remained calm, a stark contrast to Maya's escalating desperation. This was not just about technology or management, it was about the survival of an institution and the vindication of my years of loyalty. When the meeting adjourned, Leon clapped me on the shoulder, a silent acknowledgement that the tide was turning. Maya had been exposed, her corruption laid bare and her influence waning. Yet, this was only the beginning. Miltrack's implementation would be a long road, but the foundation was set. I had redefined my role, no longer the discarded engineer, but the architect of Millstone's future. In the months that followed, Miltrack integrated deeper, production stabilized, quality soared. The whispers of doubt about the new management turned to praise for the system and the team that resurrected it. And through it all, I stood firm, smart, patient, and resolute. This was my revenge, not through anger or destruction, but through unmatched skill and unwavering resolve. Maya's fall was inevitable. Her facade of competence peeled away, revealing the ruthlessness beneath. But I never let hatred cloud my judgment, instead, I let the truth and the strength of my work speak louder than words ever could. Millstone Manufacturing was reborn, under my watchful eye and with Miltrack as its heart, a testament to what one man's knowledge and determination could achieve when pushed to the edge. The glow of the factory's recovery was unmistakable. After months of relentless work, Miltrack had become the backbone of Millstone Manufacturing's revival. The machines, once prone to unpredictable halts and quality lapses, now operated with unprecedented precision. Production lines flowed seamlessly, defects plummeted, and the confidence that had once been shattered gradually returned, not just to the factory floor but all the way to the customers and partners who had once begun to look elsewhere. With each passing day, the data from Miltrack painted a clearer picture, efficiency gains that translated into millions saved, warranty claims slashed, and, most importantly, a restored reputation. Contracts that had been on the verge of collapse were renewed, some even expanded. It was a quiet triumph, born from years of dedication and the steadfast refusal to accept defeat. Meanwhile, Maya Crawford's downfall was as swift as it was severe. Once the architect of Millstone's near ruin, her complicity in the corruption scandal was exposed beyond doubt. The board wasted no time. She was terminated with immediate effect, her name forever tarnished in the company's history. Novatech Solutions, stripped of their contract and credibility, vanished from Millstone's operations. It was a hard lesson on the dangers of blind ambition and the cost of cutting corners. In the aftermath, Trenton Logistics, the parent company, implemented sweeping reforms. Policies were introduced to enforce rigorous quality control and financial transparency. No longer would decisions be made behind closed doors with only profits in mind. Every cost-cutting initiative now required a thorough impact assessment, ensuring that quality would never again be sacrificed for short-term gain. For me, this chapter was only the beginning. With Millstone Secure, I founded Collins Industrial Solutions, a consulting firm dedicated to preserving the invaluable institutional knowledge that had once been at risk of being lost. Our mission was clear: to bridge the gap between aging industrial machinery and modern technology through innovative solutions that respected tradition as much as they embraced progress. Standing alongside Leon and Emily one crisp morning, overlooking the factory floor buzzing with renewed energy, I felt a quiet satisfaction. The journey had been long and fraught with challenges, but the future looked promising. Together, we were ready to face whatever new obstacles came our way, armed with experience, integrity, and an unbreakable resolve. Reflecting on everything, the greatest lesson was clear: human intelligence and experience cannot be replaced by cold numbers or shallow algorithms. Patience, determination, and unwavering honesty triumph over deceit and betrayal. The knowledge we build, the relationships we nurture, and the resilience we show define our true value, far beyond what any modern upgrade can measure. And as I stood there, watching the hum of the machines I'd helped restore, I knew this was more than just a factory. It was the story of a man who refused to be forgotten, who turned loss into strength, and defeat into a legacy. Thanks for following Derek's journey with me. His story reminds us how valuable experience and integrity truly are, especially when faced with unfair challenges. What about you? Have you ever felt overlooked or underestimated despite your hard work? How did you respond to those moments? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like, share your comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more meaningful stories that inspire and connect us all. Your support means a lot. Thanks again for being here.